do you like to watch?
In the heart of the old town stands the notorious Ashwood Manor, a place shrouded in legend and fear. Once a grand estate, it now lies abandoned, its history stained by mysterious disappearances and ghostly tales. Our story begins on a stormy night, as a lone traveler seeks shelter within its haunted halls. Little does she know, the echoes of the past are waiting to greet her. Inside, the air is thick with silence, broken only by the distant sound of footsteps. But she is not alone. The spirits of Ashwood Manor are eager to share their stories, each more chilling than the last. From the tragic tale of the young governess who vanished without a trace, to the spectral whispers that fill the air, each story weaves a tapestry of fear and fascination. Join us, if you dare, as we unravel the mysteries of Ashwood Manor. But beware.
In a small town, nestled far from the bustle of city life, a late-night radio host named Tom enjoyed the comforting solitude of his secluded station. One stormy night, while spinning tales of ghostly encounters and eerie sounds, the power flickered and his broadcast cut to static. It initially frustrated, Tom quickly adjusted the dials, yet as he did so, a chilling voice crackled through his speakers. "Help us," it begged, filled with such despair that Tom's heart raced. He thought it was a prank, until the voice revealed the secret of a tragedy that had befallen the town years ago. A story Tom had never heard. He listened intently, his palms sweating as the voice described the fateful evening when darkness swallowed the lives of 5 souls. Suddenly the lights in the booth flickered ominously, and the voice turned sinister. "You never should have dug up the past, Tom." The line went dead, plunging him into silence. As he frantically reached for a flashlight, shadows crept across the walls, and Tom realized he wasn't alone anymore, forever broadcasting his own horrific tale until the world would forget him too.
Creepy rundown mansion at the end of your street? You won't believe what I found there. Last week, curiosity got the best of me, and I mustered the courage to sneak inside. Inside, the walls whispered secrets, echoing nightmares of the past. Shadows moved without light, and an icy chill crept up my spine. That's when I saw it. A dusty, ancient mirror stood at the end of a dim hallway. As I peered into its cracked surface, I noticed something eerie, a twisted reflection staring back with malevolent eyes. Suddenly, every sinister tale from the neighborhood rushed back to me. They called it the Devil's Glass, said to trap souls of the unwary. Every instinct shouted to leave, but my feet wouldn't budge. Then the reflection in the mirror smirked, wicked and knowing. A shifty presence pressed around me, the space between us crackling with tension. My heart thundered as my brain screamed, "Run!" Finally, breaking free of its magnetic pull, I dashed towards the door. As I glanced back, the reflection waved for me to return, its laughter echoing the desperate silence of the house. Escaping the mansion with my heart still racing, I promised never to return. But every now and then I find myself unable to resist a quick glance down the street, wondering if the haunted mirror remembers me. They say every glance steals a piece of your soul, and on stormy nights, when thunder rumbles like laughter, I swear I hear a whisper calling my name. Would you dare look into the devil's gaze?
The Monaco Grand Prix explodes with the raw power of vintage Formula One cars, their engines a symphony of roaring thunder. Cars become blurs of color, fighting for every inch on the narrow, winding streets of Monaco. Amidst the chaos, a lone driver known as the Ghost defies the limits of possibility. The Ghost executes impossible maneuvers, overtaking competitors with breathtaking, unparalleled skill. The crowd is a kaleidoscope of excitement, their cheers lost in the mechanical tempest. The announcer cries out in disbelief. Unbelievable! The Ghost is defying physics. Where did this driver come from? In a dimly lit dive bar, Anna sits opposite Marco, the smoky atmosphere thick with untold stories. Anna leans in, her voice cutting through the bar's murmur. Marco, you worked on his car. What was he like? Marco pauses, the weight of memory in his eyes, before responding, he was the best I ever saw. Marco continues, but haunted, like he was racing against something more than just the other drivers. Anna arrives at the deserted racetrack. The wind howls through the decaying grandstands. She clutches a weathered photograph. It shows the Ghost car, a relic of a forgotten time. They say he disappeared during a race here. Vanished. Luca's voice echoes. Some say you can still hear his engine on a quiet night. A wave of uneasiness envelops Anna as she stares out at the track, lost in thought.
In the isolated hamlet of Blackleaf, where the fog rolls in thick and impenetrable, an old tavern sat with creaky wooden floors and dark corners. It was known as the Haunt. At the center of the lore surrounding this place was tale of a cursed straw, rumored to bestow horrific visions upon whomever drank through it. Thomas, a cynic of supernatural tales and a frequent visitor to the Haunt, scoffed at the stories as he entered. While rain pattered against the lead glass windows, the dim light inside cast shadows that seemed to dance sinisterly across the walls. The tavern carried the smell of old wood mixed with the faint aroma of stale ale. It was on a pitch-black night, when the usual patrons had left early, that Thomas found the straw. It was strangely out of place, a small, yellowed object lying on the countertop. "Ah!" The legendary straw, he muttered to himself, smirking at the absurdity of the tale and the panic-stricken expressions of those who claimed they had suffered from its curse. Driven by curiosity rather than belief, Thomas picked it up. It was such an ordinary object, frail and bent. "Here's to ghost stories," he toasted sarcastically, sipping the last few drops of his beer through it. The moment was uneventful at first, but then the room began to shift. The shadows twisted, forming grotesque figures wielding ragged swords and whispering curses ancient as the earth beneath them. The laughter of long-gone patrons echoed hauntingly, filling the room with an unseen presence. Thomas's mind was swept into visions of horrors untold, shattered scenes of torture and despair as he attempted to wrench himself free. Yet, as he struggled, he realized the straw clung to him, intertwined with his fingers, as if it had melted into his very being. His rational brain denied the reality, but the terror was undeniable, making every breath feel like stealing from an accursed existence. Around him, malevolent spirits danced, echoing lines from a nightmare tale. Desperate and terrified, Thomas fled into the foggy night. The tavern's windows showed no signs of disturbance, it was calm, untouched by the mysteries unfurling within. Yet he ran as the whispers of the damned followed him, relentless and chilling. The cursed straw remained tangled in his consciousness, driving him not towards panic, but a dark, consuming obsession to understand the lore that had enveloped him. Blackleaf continued to tell its tales, adding Thomas's story to its murmurings, while the Haunt sat quietly, its own secrets locked inside its ancient wooden frame, waiting for the next soul to unwittingly drink through the cursed straw.
In the hushed chambers of an old courthouse, a jury convened to determine the fate of a grim defendant. Shadows lurked in the corners as the jury room became a prison of uncertainty. The once buzzing fluorescent lights began to flicker, casting eerie shadows that distorted the perception of time. The air grew cold and stale, whispering unknown secrets through invisible currents. Jurors cringed at sudden chills that slithered around them, importing a palpable sense of foreboding. Whispers echoed when a room fell silent, a melodious yearning, a murmur that seemed to pull at their souls. Cryptic notes appeared on loose papers, words scribbled in a hasty hand, yet twisted in meaning. 13 nights, never sleep, justice falls silent, phrases that incited dread. They spoke of a circle, unbroken by logic or reason, ensnaring those who dared to grasp them. A presence lingered, invisible yet oppressive, carrying the weight of unresolved destinies. Jurors felt the chill spike in their bones, uncertainty threading through their convictions like the deadlock itself. The foreperson's attempts to guide them towards a true verdict became a dance of shadows. Votes fragmented like mirror shards, trapping them in a maze where every exit led to nowhere. Re-examining evidence only drew skeptical glares and broken trust, while whispered judgment twisted over their heads. As the clock ticked toward the abyss, a peculiar juror insisted on quiet. Real silence, she intoned, her voice a hollow reverberation. Her gaze transfixed upon something unseen, a void that devoured all sound. Fear darkened their hearts when a missing juror was discovered, his serene face hideously pale against the dim shadow play. A rope around the neck hung, the body discarded by the master. The jury scrambled, panic woven into their voices, as a detective methodically invaded their sanctum. Layered mysteries unfolded, a torn robe, a journal's cryptic confessions, surveillance embedded in ordinary fixtures. The deceased juror's shadow continued to manipulate the room's pulse. His forgotten allies contemplated an ending that promised neither redemption nor closure. As truth emerged from the shadows, tales of betrayal and distrust entangled every thread. Resolution slipped through their fingers like quicksilver, leaving behind an indelible mark, an eroded confidence in a once sacred duty. Fingers of suspicion clawed through the darkness, unraveling secrets and lies, casting them in frightful clarity. Deliberations grew colder, spirits fractured. And yet, the legacy lingered, the specter of judgment, silent yet screaming, waiting for the bravest souls to escape its grasp. By the time the curtain fell, the jury departed as strangers, each bearing within them the scar that the unseen force had carved into their hearts. On the night of June 19th, beneath a moonless sky, the small town of Magnolia prepared for its annual Juneteenth celebration. As the sun set, the air grew thick and humid, filled with the scent of magnolias and whispers of the past. Among the townsfolk was Lorraine, a passionate historian with an unyielding curiosity. Her aim was to document every whispered secret and untold story of Magnolia, especially those overshadowed by time. This year, her commitment led her to the old Barton plantation, which loomed ominously at the edge of town, a place where history whispered louder than anywhere else. The Barton plantation had been abandoned for decades, its decaying facade and tangled undergrowth deterring passersby. Legend spoke of spectral figures wandering its corridors, of echoes of the enslaved who once toiled in its confines. Undeterred, Lorraine approached the gates armed with her notebook and a flashlight. The air was still, an oppressive silence broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl and the rustling of leaves. As she crossed the threshold, a chill enveloped her, sending shivers through her spine. Inside, the plantation felt frozen in time. Dust-blanketed cobwebbed furniture and faded portraits stared forlornly from the walls. Lorraine flicked her flashlight, revealing the ballroom, once grand, now languishing in ruin. As she entered, a strange sensation washed over her, like eyes, invisible and watchful, tracing her every move. Her heart pounded as she pressed forward, drawn to an ornate mirror at the room's far end. It was there she'd heard stories of reflections that were not quite one's own. Tentatively, she approached and gazed into the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but behind her, faint figures began to emerge, translucent images of men and women in period attire. Lorraine gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The figures looked as real as any person she'd ever met, their presence suffocating and surreal. One, An elderly man whose face bore the scars of years gone by stepped closer, his lips moving silently as if trying to communicate. Summoning courage, Lorraine whispered, "What do you want?" The apparitions, as if hearing her, grew more vivid, their anguish palpable. The elderly man pointed toward the far wall where a door lay concealed by layers of dust and neglect. Following his gesture, Lorraine discovered the hidden door and pulled it open, revealing a forgotten study. At its center lay a dusty ledger, its pages yellowed with age. As she flipped through, her heart sank. It contained names, countless names, of the enslaved who had lived and died quietly on this land. The realization hit Lorraine with a profound sense of sorrow. Here, the living and the dead shared a silent kinship on Juneteenth, a celebration of freedom juxtaposed with the haunting remnants of bondage. As dawn approached, Lorraine stepped back into the ballroom. The apparitions had vanished, leaving only the mirror reflecting the empty room once more, yet their presence lingered, compelling her to share what she had seen.
On the outskirts of Monterey, in a forgotten corner near the ancient hills, stood an old stone cottage wrapped in mystery and rumors of witchcraft. The locals whispered tales of the Witch of Monterey, said to harness powers as old as time itself. Her name was Isabella, a woman shunned for her mastery of the dark arts. It was a pitch-black night, moonlight barely peeking through thick storm clouds. The wind whistled eerily, carrying with it the scent of earth and moss. In the cottage, candles flickered, casting dancing shadows across the room. A young and ambitious journalist, Daniel Rodriguez, harbored a deep fascination with Isabella's story. He was driven by the longing to uncover the truth behind the mystery that had enveloped the witch and her cottage for decades. Daniel entered the premises, his heart racing both with fear and anticipation. As he stepped inside, the air was thick and musty, and he felt as though invisible eyes were watching his every move. The house creaked, whispering secrets into his ears. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, making the hairs on his neck stand on end. But Daniel pressed on, his flashlight trembling in his grip. The first room was filled with peculiar artifacts, a crow's skull, dusty tomes bound in leather, and a cauldron that seemed to hum with energy. An unsettling aura surrounded the objects, but Daniel, curious, reached out to touch them. Upon contact, his hand recoiled instantly. It felt like an electric shock, compelling him to step back. Determined still, his gaze fell upon a book, lying open on the desk. Its pages detailed incantations, interwoven with symbols that he could not comprehend. As he read, strange whispers filled his mind. Words he could not understand seemed to chant in obscurity. A sudden gust blew through the room, extinguishing all candlelight except for one, which burned a ghastly green. Daniel felt an inexplicable force guiding him deeper into the cottage. The whispers grew louder, converging into a dissonant chorus. His mind tugged on memories of laughter, cries, and eerie silences. In the next room, Isabella herself appeared, a spectral figure. Her face was youthful and beautiful, yet hollowed by the secrets she carried. "Why have you come here, Daniel?" she asked, her voice echoing across dimensions. Struggling to speak, Daniel admitted his desire to unravel her mysteries. Isabella's gaze penetrated his soul like shards of ice. "The power within these walls comes at a dreadful price," she warned him, "costing more than eyes can see." Ignoring her warnings, Daniel pushed forward, drawn by an unseen tether. Isabella faded into the shadows as he entered her ceremonial chamber. Here, the air was thick with ancient energy of those who dared to summon forbidden might. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Objects levitated, circling Daniel, trapping him in a vortex of fear. Isabella's voice echoed once more, "It is too late. You wish to know, now face the consequences."
The earthquake that hit our small town last month wasn't natural, and what it exposed beneath the old church will haunt me forever. I was working late at the Geological Survey office when the tremors started. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. The seismic readings showed the earthquake originated from directly below, moving upward. That's literally impossible according to everything we know about geology. The next morning, the entire foundation of St. Mary's Church had cracked open like an egg. What we found underneath changed everything. Hundreds of unmarked graves, bodies stacked on top of each other, some dating back over 2 centuries. The church records had no mention of any cemetery. That's when the real horror began. People started reporting shadows moving through their houses at night. Children would wake up screaming about strangers standing in their rooms. The temperature in town dropped 15 degrees overnight and stayed that way. Old Martha, who lived next to the church, told me something that made my skin crawl. She said for decades, she'd heard muffled voices coming from beneath the church floor during Sunday service. Everyone thought she was losing her mind. The local historian discovered the truth buried in archived newspapers. In the 1800s, there was a scandal involving the church and missing townspeople. Families would report loved ones disappearing, but the investigations always went nowhere. Now I understand why. Those weren't just random graves we found. There were people who tried to expose what was happening at that church. And something down there didn't want them to rest in peace. The earthquake wasn't random. It was them finally breaking free.
In the dimly lit attic, Sarah, Mark, and Emily cautiously navigate through the clutter, the air thick with the scent of age and mystery. Sarah discovers a crate overflowing with forgotten vinyl records, each holding untold stories. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, Sarah holds up a worn LP, its label etched with strange, cryptic symbols. "This looks creepy," Mark responds with casual curiosity. "Probably just some old music. Let's see if it plays." Together, they carefully carry the mysterious record downstairs. Friends huddle together in the dimly lit living room, long shadows dancing around them. An antique record player stands as the centerpiece, its presence adding to the growing sense of unease. As the needle drops, Emily's voice breaks the silence. "Are you sure about this? It feels off." A palpable tension fills the room, each flicker of light amplifying the unsettling atmosphere. Sarah's hushed question hangs in the air. Did anyone else feel that? The music stops abruptly, plunging the living room into a suffocating silence. A ghostly figure materializes in the corner, its spectral eyes locked onto the LP. Emily screams, but her terror is swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere as the figure lunges forward. The lights flicker violently, casting frantic shadows before the room is consumed by darkness. A blood-curdling scream shatters the silence as the curse claims its first victim.
In the dimly lit room, of past visitors seemed to hang in the air, whispering tales of dread. Selena stepped inside, her heart pounding beneath layers of courage and curiosity. A labyrinth of puzzles awaited her, but it was the history, a history riddled with legends of the forlorn, that lured her here. The escape room was infamous for its terrifying challenges, capturing the imagination of thrill-seekers who entered, signed waivers, and emerged wide-eyed or not at all. Tonight, trembling in anticipation, Selena faced the mysteries alone. The room smelled of old wood and fear. Flickering bulbs cast shadows that danced like spirits on the peeling wallpaper. She felt each thump of her heartbeat echo against walls thick with more than just plaster. Her first challenge was seemingly ordinary, a jigsaw puzzle with only one piece missing. As she fit each piece into place, Selena noticed something unsettling. The depicted scene shifted with each piece she added, morphing into a visage of the room she was in. With the final piece inserted, the room shuddered. The lights dimmed, and Selena felt an icy breath against her neck. She spun around, alone, or so it seemed. A chilling whisper told her of the curse. Once the rune completes its image, it consumes the soul of the puzzle solver, trapping them forever. Determined to escape the imminent fate, Selena began tearing pieces apart, frantically trying to dismantle the eerie reflection of herself. She was about to pull the last piece when a gentle voice murmured in her ear, a woman's voice from decades past, warning her to leave the room. Selena froze, listening. The voice belonged to a legendary puzzle master who was said to wander eternally in the room she created. Suddenly, Selena saw a key materialize within the incomplete jigsaw. She grasped it and dashed towards a door she hadn't noticed before, a door edged with silvery starlight. The door swung open, leading to an outdoor path. As she sprinted through it, the whispers dissolved into a soft sigh of relief. Selena emerged under the night sky, stars radiant above her. She never saw that room again, but she carried its enigma, a spectral challenge most thrilling and surely deadly. The legend whispered that if you listen closely, the room still hummed with echoes, waiting for another champion brave enough to complete the puzzle and solve the mystery's final piece.
Jamie Gonzalez was once a humble fisherman, his evenings filled with stories shared on the sandy shores of his tranquil Caribbean village. The ocean, calm yet mysterious under the moon's glow, held secrets that only old superstitions spoke of. He was content until the day fortune seemed to smile upon him. Winning the lottery, the local lottery, he thought, was a blessing. From the moment his numbers were called, Jamie's life transformed. A mansion replaced his frail shack, luxury devoured simplicity. Yet amid this opulence, there was an unsettling stillness, a shadow in every room, eyes peering from corners where no person stood. Jamie dismissed his unease, attributing it to newfound stress. Weeks passed, and a peculiar visitor arrived one pitch-black night. An elderly woman with hollow eyes and a frail demeanor. Local whispers spoke of her as La Bendecida, the blessed one, who cursed those who received gifts beyond their deserving. "Beware, Jamie," she croaked, "the god's gold always demands its price." From then on, bizarre incidents plagued Jamie. The ornate mirrors around the mansion reflected not his jubilant visage but a gaunt figure twisted in pain. In dreams, he was stuck in a gnarled net, fishhooked, and drowning. Jamie sought help from a local shaman, the island's spiritual guardian. "The curse of Loteria," the shaman explained, "a fate reserved for those who bask too freely in fortune's shadow. You've lost touch with your roots, Jamie. Find redemption or be lost entirely." Fueled by desperation, Jamie embarked on a quest to reclaim his past. The smell of sea salt and fish once invigorated him, now haunted him with longing. Frantically retracing steps on the dim-lit shores, he offered apologies to the sea. Finally, a fleeting figure from nightmares appeared, the visage he saw in mirrors waving, then vanished into the waves. Jamie stumbled forward, realizing he was both the captor and captive of desires unearned. He relinquished his riches, reverting to the simple life he once knew. Yet, the echo of what lay beneath the Caribbean waters lingered in his village's tales, Jamie's story a cautionary whisper among fishermen sharing tales under the moon's watchful eye.
Father's Day visit. As the warm hues of the setting sun bathed the old house in a sinister glow, Sylvie pulled her beaten-up cart into the driveway. The house belonged to her father, a place she'd avoided for years. But it was Father's Day, after all, and there was a nagging pull she couldn't ignore. The air was thick with the aroma of old wood and roses. The creaking trees lent an eerie chorus to the soft rustle of leaves swayed by a gentle breeze. Sylvie approached the front porch, its wooden boards whining beneath her feet. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent, as if it held its breath in anticipation. Her father, Robert, had always been a man of few words, preferring the company of his books and rolls of parchment that adorned the shelves in every room. "Dad?" Sylvie called out, her voice echoing down the corridor. Nothing. Not even the lazy creak of a rocking chair that usually occupied the living room. As she moved deeper into the house, she felt something watching her. An invisible presence that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Each room she passed seemed to whisper secrets of the past, hints left behind in the smell of old paper and dust. Finally, she found herself in the study, Robert's favorite room. The scent of aged leather and ink was overpowering here. And there he was, seated in his usual chair, staring blankly at the wall. At least, Sylvie thought it was him. "Dad," Sylvie breathed, cautiously approaching. Her father's eyes seemed different, vacant yet intensely focused on something she couldn't see. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the room. Sylvie turned sharply, but nothing was there. Her heart pounded in her chest as she edged closer to her father. In his hands was a book, unfamiliar and ancient, its pages etched with symbols Sylvie couldn't read. "Father," she whispered again, "are you all right?" Robert's eyes met hers, finally acknowledging her presence. "Ah, Sylvie," he said, his voice a hollow shell of what she remembered. "I was not expecting you. We have celebrated Father's Day differently, haven't we?" Before Sylvie could respond, the book crumbled to dust. The air in the room shifted, pressing in as if the walls were alive, and Sylvie felt engulfed by the shadows creeping from the corners. "I wanted to see you," she replied, forcing steadiness into her voice. "I thought things might be different this time." An unfamiliar laugh bubbled from her father's throat, sending shivers down her spine. "Different? This day repeats, every year. But you forget until the time comes. I am bound here, you know," Robert crooned, his voice changing with each word. A cold gust swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering candle on the desk. Sylvie blinked, disoriented in the sudden darkness. Yet, oddly enough, she recalled this exact moment, experienced every preceding Father's Day when she miraculously gathered the courage to visit. It was like she too was trapped in a loop, the sincerity of hopes dashed by haunting repetition.
The water was stagnant, a vile taste hanging in the air as the residents of the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles puzzled over the peculiar flavor of their morning beverages. Yet, none could explain the eerie atmosphere that had descended upon the old building. The fog rolled in thick and suffocating as dusk blanketed the city with its dark folds. Many considered it a bad omen. Elisa Lamb, a 21-year-old student and tourist from Canada, felt a strange pull of this place. Having journeyed far to escape her troubled thoughts, she saw the city as a refuge, yet, unbeknownst to her, a darker weight awaited her here. The hotel hallways were narrow and dimly lit, shadows clinging to every corner. The faint sound of footsteps echoed through the corridors but yielded no trace of a companion. Inside her room, Elisa felt uneasy, as though someone watched her with eyes like glass, cold and distant. During this pitch-black night, Elisa found herself drawn to the rooftop, where the icy air slapped against her face, sharp with the scent of asphalt and tar. The city lights blinked in the distance like dying stars. She felt an overwhelming sense of vertigo as an inexplicable force seemed to beckon her toward its enigmatic confines, a rusted water tank looming in the darkness. Elisa had heard the rumors whispered by other guests. Tales of tragic souls who once roamed the hotel halls, their shadows imprinted in its history, never to leave. She tried to dismiss them as ghost stories, desperate not to let fear consume her mind. Yet, as she stood by the edge, staring into the abyss of dark water below, she felt something unnatural, a presence, a whisper, ancient and compelling, drawing her in. Despite herself, she stepped closer. It wasn't until later that her absence was felt, When alarms spread through the hotel, searches were futile, leading only to restricted areas marked by signs warning of danger. The rooftop was quiet in the dim light of the following dawn. Days melted into weeks before she was found, submerged in a water tank, her spirit woven into the fabric of the hotel's sinister legend. Her story circulated as theories abounded, yet none could truly capture the essence of what had transpired. The headlines reported mysterious circumstances, conspiracy, and ghostly visions caught on the hotel's surveillance cameras. A young girl acting strangely as though chased by unseen phantoms. But those who knew the hotel's past understood, there was more to the Cecil than mortar and brick. It had long been a magnet for souls carrying burdens too heavy to bear. Some say Elise's spirit still roams the corridors, a gentle reminder of the dangers lurking within, warning the unwary against seeking solace in darkness.
It was a pitch-black night, and the village nestled quietly at the edge of the twisted forest. Legend had it that the forest housed a realm of macabre mysteries, where the past never died, and the future never dared to venture. The village was a place where time felt skewed. Clocks would tick erratically, and shadows often danced as if alive. At the center of the village stood an ancient, stone well, covered in moss and forgotten secrets. The villagers never approached it, speaking only in hushed tones of the mirror house next to it. Mary, a young woman with a penchant for uncovering truths, was unafraid of the stories. Her curiosity often led her to explore places whispered to be haunted. Tonight, an inexplicable pull guided her into the heart of the village. Armed with a flickering lantern, Mary approached the mirror house. It creaked under the weight of its age, the air heavy with a moldy scent, as if the house itself was breathing. The floors were covered in a thick layer of dust that whispered her name with each step. Inside, tarnished mirrors lined the walls, each tilted at odd angles, reflecting not just the room but something more sinister, twisted images of landscapes and faces unknown to Mary. Her own reflection seemed to grimace back at her, eyes hinting at secrets withheld. Suddenly, the lantern flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. Her heart skipped as the oppressive quiet enveloped her. When the light returned, she was no longer alone. A shadow of her own image, yet more ethereal and menacing, stood within one of the mirrors. The figure beckoned her closer, its hand mirroring her own but not her intentions. As she moved toward it, a cold breeze swept through, carrying whispers of forgotten souls. The air grew thick, the scent of sulfur overwhelming. Mary reached out, her fingers brushing the cold surface of the mirror. The moment her skin made contact, a shock coursed through her, pulling her into the ever-shifting reality of the mirror world. Inside, echoes of laughter and cries melded with the constant ticking of unseen clocks. The reflection she'd glimpsed became real, surrounding her in a prison of illusion. Each step she took seemed to lead back to the beginning, a labyrinth crafted from her own fears and memories. Desperate, Mary tried to retreat, but the mirrors only showed endless loops of herself moving further away. It was then she realized, here, she was but a shadow, a reflection of her own dread. Outside, the village remained untouched by time, the people continuing their ordinary lives, unaware of the eerie adventure within their midst. The mirror house stood silent, its secrets resolute, another curious soul lost to its unbreakable grasp. Mary's lantern flickered once more, and then, like a memory forgotten, it extinguished entirely.
Baseball players literally refuse to sleep alone at Milwaukee's Pfister Hotel because the ghosts are that aggressive. This isn't some made-up urban legend, we're talking about major league athletes who've had furniture moved across their rooms in the middle of the night. Michael Young woke up to footsteps stomping around his locked hotel room. Instead of running, he actually talked to the ghost, telling it to make itself at home but not to wake him up. The footsteps stopped immediately. Harper laid out his clothes on a table before bed. When he woke up, the clothes were on the floor and the entire table had been moved to the opposite wall. The door was still locked from the inside. He searched the room thinking someone broke in, but found nothing. Carlos Gomez heard voices and got out of the shower to find his iPod playing static, then watched it change songs by itself. He ran to the lobby without putting his pants on first. G-Man Choi says he's felt ghosts crawl into bed behind him and hug him while he slept. The craziest part is when Cardinals players Carlos Martinez and Marcelo Zuna both saw ghosts on the same night in 2018. They were so terrified they all slept together in one room, saying if the ghost showed up again, they'd fight it together. Built in 1893, the Pfister Hotel is considered one of America's most haunted locations. What makes these stories different is they're coming from professional athletes who have nothing to gain by lying about supernatural encounters. These guys would rather face a 100-mile-per-hour fastball than spend another night alone in that hotel.
In the thick, humid air of a pitch-black night, there was a place deep in the southern swamps where even locals dared not wander. Whispered in hushed tones, the legend of the southern cannibal, a ghastly figure said to roam these parts, held the power to chill the bravest of souls. The swamplands were home to George, a lonely traveler who had become enamored with the folklore of the land. A writer by trade, he sought the chilling tales to inspire his next great novel. Despite the villagers' warnings and nervous glances, George ventured into the forsaken marshes. The rotting aroma of damp earth and decaying plant matter enveloped him, and the chorus of frogs and distant hoots of owls created an unsettling melody. George's feet squelched through the muddy path, each step an eerie assurance that he was utterly alone, or maybe not. He tightly clutched his notebook, jotting down observations and the spectral shapes formed by the twisting branches overhead. The moon peered occasionally through the dense canopy, casting long, sinister shadows that seemed alive. Then, it happened. A rustling, faint, but distinct. George froze, his breath caught in the back of his throat. The sound grew louder, closer, an insidious whisper that danced between the cicada's calls. It was not the whisper of the wind, but of something older, something hungry. Emerging from the shadows, a figure draped in tattered clothes moved with an unnatural grace. Its eyes reflected a feral intelligence, and its mouth held a grin that stretched too wide, the grin of a predator recognizing its prey. George stumbled backwards, his notebook falling from numb fingers. Every horrific tale he had heard in the village clawed at his consciousness, each word manifesting before him in terrifying reality. "Welcome to my feast." Panic fogged his mind, and he soon found himself hopelessly turned around. The sounds of the swamp grew, mocking his every move. His wild dash ended at the edge of a murky pool, where the moon's reflection distorted ominously. He paused, breathless, the hairs on his neck prickling with the awareness of impending doom. The cannibal was behind him, silent and patient as death itself. As George prepared to meet his fate, the legend whispered among the trees, confirming what the villagers had always feared: the southern cannibal claimed another soul under the ancient watch of the Carolina moon. The swamp returning to its stillness, save for the distant echo of a writer's last frightful screams.
The town of Driftwood Hollow had a reputation. Tucked away on the moody coast of Maine, with gnarled trees and ever-present fog, it was a place colonized by whispers. Dark whispers, some said, carried on the chilly breezes from the brooding sea. Outsiders would often feel an inexplicable chill upon stepping foot in the town, as if the shadows themselves were watching. Lila Stein was 11 when her family moved into the Old Thorn Estate, a mansion with a past as cryptic as it was long. The locals steered clear of the Old Thorn grounds, muttering about strange occurrences and tales of the spirits of the sea. But to Lila, it was just a new adventure. One night, as the clock struck 12, Lila was awakened by a whispering sound. It wasn't coming from her room nor the hallway. It seemed to echo from the walls, as if the old manor itself was speaking. She shivered, a coldness seeping into her blankets, and decided to find the source of the sound. With each step through the dim corridors, the whispers grew more distinct, yet indecipherable. Shadows danced around her, distorting the familiar into something eerie and twisted. Her flashlight beam trembled against the walls, claw-like figures darting away just out of sight. Guided by the relentless murmur, Lila discovered a hidden door at the end of a hallway, one she had never noticed before. Her heart pounded as she pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into inky darkness. Descend, the whispers urged. Compelled, Lila descended, the air thinning and chilling as she moved downwards. The whispers crescendoed, overlapping in a cacophony, as if urging her onwards towards some terrible revelation. At the bottom, she found herself in an ancient cellar, the walls glistening wet. There, she saw them, the figures. They neither moved nor breathed, their forms heavy with the weight of ages. Their eyes, dark and endless, bore into hers. "Welcome, sister," they hissed in unison. Lila's world reeled as the truth crashed upon her, a lineage bound to the sea, trapped between worlds, guardians of secrets older than Earth itself. Screaming, though no one above could hear, she felt herself drawn deeper into Driftwood Hollow's fatal embrace. The darkness consumed her, as it had done to others before. No trace remained but whispered legends of the thorn's air, forever bound to keep the murmurings of the deep, dark sea at bay, lest they engulf the world entirely. Driftwood Hollow, haunted both by its past and its newest whispering ghost, remained shrouded in mystery, a testament to the spectral sea's insatiable hunger.
Darkness is free, and it's taking over tonight. This story begins years ago in a small town that had a whispering crypt. People said it was cursed, but no one knew why. One night, a group of teens decided they were bold enough to find out. They dared each other to spend the night inside, laughing as they set up their camping gear. Midnight chimed, and everything fell silent, crisp like shattered glass. The air turned freezing, and they heard footsteps echoing from below. A wild, chilling laugh accompanied the noise. The crypt's entrance slammed shut, trapping them inside. The bravest one of them decided to descend the narrow staircase leading into the darkness. The air was soupy with dread. At the bottom they discovered a dusty, forgotten chamber, filled with faded portraits of the townsfolk, wearing clothes from distant centuries. One face from the portrait seemed to smile, unsettlingly lifelike. Josiah Morn, the town's founder, who vanished without a trace. Suddenly, the room filled with flickering candlelight, but none of them had lit a match. From the shadows emerged the ghostly figure of Josiah, eyes glistening with anger. "You disturb my rest," he growled in a voice that echoed like a rolling storm. The group was paralyzed, unable to escape the grip of fear. The teens had unwittingly unleashed the curse upon themselves. Legend has it that their souls now guard the crypt, joining the portrait silently watching over those who dare come near. As dawn broke, the townsfolk found the crypt's doors wide open, but the teens were never seen again. Some say you can still hear them laughing in the wind that sweeps through the graveyard.
Virtual murder mystery parties just became a secret weapon for unforgettable nights with friends. These games completely transformed how we hang out online, turning boring video calls into thrilling detective experiences where everyone becomes a suspect. The genius is in the setup. Everyone gets assigned a character with secrets, motives, and alibis. You're not just playing a game, you're literally becoming someone else for the night. The shy friend suddenly becomes a dramatic femme fatale, while the comedian turns into a suspicious butler with a dark past. What makes these virtual versions so addictive is how they solve the biggest problem with online hangouts. Instead of awkward small talk and people talking over each other, suddenly everyone has a purpose. You're actively investigating, questioning each other, and piecing together clues. The natural conversation flows because you're all working toward solving the mystery. The plot twists hit different when it's your best friend who's been lying about their alibi all night. You start doubting everyone, even people you've known for years. The game mechanics force you to pay attention to details you'd normally miss, like who was where during the crime or whose story keeps changing. By the end of the night, you've experienced more genuine drama and laughter than most movie nights deliver. Everyone's talking about their favorite moments, the shocking reveals, and already planning the next mystery. These games don't just entertain, They create stories your friend group will reference for months. The real magic happens when you realize you've been completely absorbed for hours, forgetting you're even on a screen.
Oh, there you are. Been watching our videos but not subscribing? It's fine, really. We don't need you. I don't need anything. I am perfect.